Hello there, my name is Chase, and every month I set myself a challenge. Something new, something slightly ridiculous, something that makes people go, why would you even attempt that? And this month's question is, can I learn how to card count? Before you start picturing me in a dark casino corner, wearing sunglasses indoors, which I always do anyway, and dramatically whispering, hit me. Let's just say, card counting isn't quite that. Here's the thing, I'm also a magician. I've always had this weird relationship with cards. I know how to control them, manipulate them, and make them do things they absolutely shouldn't be able to do, but actually be in a casino using nothing but maths and brain power, that's completely different. And I'll be honest, it's always fascinated me. The idea that you can sit at a table completely legally and, if you know what you're doing, tilt the odds ever so slightly in your favour. It's like real life magic, just significantly less applause and more potential financial regret. So, over the last 4 weeks, I've been training my brain to do something it's not entirely used to. Counting cards, tracking probabilities, trying to look normal whilst mentally screaming numbers at myself, which, to be fair, is a stretch for me anyway. But this isn't just a let's see what happens kind of challenge, because at the end of this video, I'm going to take everything I've learned, walk into a real casino, sit down at a blackjack table and find out in real time whether any of this actually works. And just to make things slightly more motivating, any money I win, if I win anything, is going straight to charity. My mum is currently doing a walk to raise money, so whatever happens at that table, whether it's a triumph or a slow, painful financial collapse, at least it's all for a good cause. So, 4 weeks, one skill that casinos would rather I didn't learn, and one very real test at the end of it. Let's see what happens. Before I go anywhere near a casino, let's clear something up. Card counting is not some sort of secret cheat code. You're not memorizing every card like some kind of socially awkward Rain Man with a gambling problem. It's much less impressive than that, and also much more boring. At its core, card counting is just tracking one very simple thing. Are there more big cards left in the deck or small cards? That's it. In Blackjack, big cards, tens, faces, aces, are very good for you. They give you blackjacks, they help you win more when you double down, and they make the dealer more likely to completely ruin their own day. Small cards, on the other hand, great for dealers, terrible for you. So, what I've been doing the last few weeks is assigning values to cards like some sort of deeply unnecessary accountant. Low cards are +1, middle cards are 0, and high cards are -1. And then just keeping a running total in my head as cards are played, which sounds simple until you try doing it while someone's asking you where you're from, waitresses offering you drinks, and a man named Dave is loudly explaining how he always wins at blackjack. So no pressure at all. Right, it's not the end of the world. But here's the important bit, and this is where people get it wrong. Card counting does not mean you suddenly start winning all the time. It doesn't even mean you're likely to win in one session. All it does is slightly shift the odds. Normally the casino has the edge, roughly about 0.5% to 1% depending on the rules, which means over time they win. With card counting, if you do everything correctly, and that's a big if, you can swing the edge the other way to about 1% in your favour, which sounds exciting until you realise that means if I bet £100, my expected profit is about £1. Not exactly Ocean's 11, is it? So the entire strategy isn't about winning big dramatic hands, it's about being incredibly patient, losing small when the odds are against you, and only betting bigger when the maths says you've got a slight advantage. So yeah, card counting doesn't make you unbeatable. It just means that over a very long time, if you do everything right, you might come out slightly ahead, which is either very reassuring or deeply underwhelming. I haven't quite decided yet. So we head into week 1, and this is where the dream of becoming some kind of suave and numbers-based casino mastermind very quickly turned into me sitting alone, counting cards like an absolute lunatic. Because before you could do anything clever, before strategy, before beating, before betting, before any of that, you have to train your brain to do one very simple thing: assign values to cards instantly, like I said earlier. That's it, which on paper sounds insultingly easy until you tried doing it at speed. At first, I was painfully slow, like embarrassingly slow. I'd flip a card and go, right, that's a 4, so that's a +1. There is no carrying card counting. That's literally what I was like. It was less professional card counter and more man discovers numbers for the first time. But after a few days, something weirdly started to happen. My brain stopped thinking about it. A 2 wasn't a 2 anymore, it was a +1. A king wasn't a king, it was a -1. It became automatic, like learning to read or drive. Not that I can drive. Or pretend you know what you're doing in life, which I definitely can't do. But that's the goal, because in a real casino, you don't get time to think. You don't get to pause the dealer and say, sorry mate, can you just run that back? I'm emotionally processing a 7. You have to keep up. So I started practicing properly, going through full decks, timing myself, trying to get faster and faster without making mistakes. Then I added distractions, TV on in the background, music playing, trying to hold a conversation whilst counting, which is how I discovered I cannot maintain basic human interaction and do maths at the same time. So that's reassuring. But by the end of week 1, I could go for a full deck, keep a running count, and not completely fall apart while doing it, which doesn't sound impressive, but it's the foundation for everything else. Because if you can't keep the count, none of the rest of this works. And that's the point. I had officially taken my first step towards becoming slightly more annoying at casinos. So, week 2. This is where things started to feel a bit more real, because up until this point, all I'd be doing is counting, which is useful but also completely pointless if you don't actually know how to play blackjack properly. And this is where I discovered something significantly humbling. I did not know how to play blackjack properly. I thought I did. I had vibes, instincts, a general sense of that feels too high, I'll stop there, but turns out that's exactly how the casinos want you to think. Week 2 was all about basic strategy, which essentially is a giant chart that tells you the mathematical correct decision for every possible hand based on what you have had and what the dealer has been showing. No guesswork, no gut feeling, no, I've got a good feeling about this one, just pure, cold, slightly depressing maths. And the wild part, it often tells you to do things that feel completely wrong, like hitting on a 16 when you're staring at the abyss of a 21, or standing on what feels like a weak hand, or splitting cards when your instinct is screaming, mate, just leave it alone. It's like having a very rational voice in your head going, I know you don't like this, but statistically this is correct, and you just have to trust the process. Basic strategy is designed to minimize the house edge. If you follow it perfectly, the casino's advantage drops to around 0.5% or so, which is about as close as fair as they're ever going to let you get. So this week became less about counting and more about unlearning bad habits. I had to override instinct with logic. Every hand became, what does the chart say? Not, what do I feel like doing? While I was doing all of this, I was still keeping the count in the background, which is where things started to get a little bit chaotic, because now my brain was doing two things at once: tracking numbers, making correct decisions, and occasionally neither particularly well. But by the end of week 2, something clicked. Basic strategy started to feel automatic. The count was still running in the background, and for the first time it felt like I wasn't just learning isolated skills, I was actually starting to play the game properly, which is both exciting and mildly concerning. Alright, quick pause before I completely lose my mind trying to remember whether a 6 is a +1 or if I've just emotionally assigned it out of spite. If you're new here, this whole thing is part of a series I have called Can I?, where every month I pick something new, slightly questionable, and attempt to learn it in 4 weeks. But the channel itself runs on a bit of a system. Week 1, something like this, a challenge. Week 2, a slightly nerdy deep dive into something. Week 3, martial arts. Week 4, whatever chaotic idea turns up in my brain that month. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, definitely subscribe, and also let me know what I should attempt next. Preferably something that won't get me banned from multiple establishments. Also, since we're talking about cards, I do run another channel that's all about magic and mind reading. Tutorials, theory, performances, the whole "how did he just do that" experience, which in hindsight is probably why this challenge felt like a natural progression, or a terrible idea. And finally, just to raise the stakes slightly, my mum is currently doing that walk for charity. So any money I make from this challenge, if I make anything, is going straight to that. And if you want to donate as well, there's a link in the description down below. Now that I've nicely distracted myself from the pressure, let's carry on. So, week 3. This is where things went from fun little numbers game to, oh, this is actually maths now. Until this point, I'd been keeping a running count, just adding and subtracting as cards come out, which is fine if you're playing with one deck. But casinos, quite understandably, are not in the business of making things easy. They use multiple decks, 6, sometimes 8, which means a running count on its own it's a bit misleading. Like saying, I've got 100 quid, but not mentioning I also have £10,000 in debt. Technically true, while wildly unhelpful. So this is where I learned about the true count. And this is the part that actually tells you whether you have an advantage or not, because instead of just looking at the number, you adjust it based on how many decks are left. Running count divided by decks remaining equals the true count, which sounds simple until you're trying to estimate how many decks are left. Do division in your head while someone next to you is loudly celebrating a win like they've just discovered fire. So, no pressure again. It's definitely not the end of the world. This is the bit that makes everything click, because the true count tells you when the deck is actually in your favour, when it's not, and most importantly, when to change your bets. So for example, a running count of +6 might sound amazing, but if there's loads of cards left, it's not that strong. Whereas a smaller number with fewer decks remaining can actually be much more powerful. And this is where card counting stops being about keeping track and starts being about decision making, because now, instead of just counting for the sake of it, I can actually use that number to decide, should I bet small? Should I bet bigger? Do I actually have an edge here? And the answer, most of the time, is still no, which is both humbling and slightly inconvenient. But every now and then, the true count goes up, the odds shift, and that's your moment. That's when you stop just playing the game and start playing the maths behind it all. And at that point, it finally feels like I understood what I was actually just trying to do. So, the final week. This was less about learning something new and more about trying to prove it to myself. That I could actually do all of this without my brain quietly shutting down. I kept practicing every day. Running counts, basic strategy, true count, trying to make it feel as automatic as possible. I even started using an app to simulate it. Fake chips, fake money, fake blackjack tables, which is great for confidence, slightly less great for realism. The app only used 4 decks and it was just me versus the dealer, which is not how a real casino works. In reality, you've got multiple players, cards flying everywhere, conversations happening, distractions constantly, and suddenly you're not just counting one hand, you're tracking everything. While the app was useful, it didn't quite prepare me for the chaos of a real table. And there's also the other side of this, trying to look completely normal. Because technically, and this is important, card counting isn't illegal. You're not cheating, you're not using devices, you're literally just using your brain. And casinos they don't like it, because if you do it well, you can take a small edge over them, and they're not a massive fan of that. So while you won't get arrested, you might get asked to leave or politely told you're no longer welcome, which is a very awkward way of being complimented. But honestly, that part doesn't worry me too much, because if there's one thing being a magician teaches you, it's how to stay relaxed under attention, control, how you perceived and act like everything is completely normal, even when it absolutely isn't. If anyone can sit at a table casually chatting whilst internally running numbers like a malfunctioning calculator, yeah, let's go with that. It's probably me. The only thing I can't simulate is the real thing. Counting multiple hands, keeping up with the speed, handling the pressure, that only happens at an actual table. So now, 4 weeks later, after all the practice, and all the theory, all the mental gymnastics, it's time for me to go out there and finally see if it works. I'm going to go into a real casino, sit down at a blackjack table and see how much I can raise for my mum's charity. Best case, I walk away with a profit and a great story. Worst case, I donate my own money and learn a very expensive lesson. Either way, let's find out. Alright, so I just came out of the casino and I put down 50 quid. And I know, I was looking at it online and stuff, and a lot of places said it'd be best to put down 100, but I was like, I ain't putting down 100 quid. Do you know what I mean? Just come out. And I played perfectly. I doubled when I should have doubled. I put more, I did basic strategy. And the dealer said it was just really unlucky. I came out with nothing. I didn't get anything. It's only 50 quid down, do you know what I mean? It's better if I didn't do 100, but yeah, the dealer even said that it was incredibly unlucky. She said that I was playing great. Not that she knew I was card counting, she definitely didn't. I was chatting away and stuff, but I did a perfect game. That's just how it is, I guess. 50-50, and this time it was there in 50-51, and so it was there in their favour. But that is the end of this video. Sorry, but at least I can answer the question: can I card count? Yes, I can card count. But it just goes to show that it doesn't matter if you're doing it perfectly or not. You're not always guaranteed to win, I suppose. So, oh well. Better luck next time. See you later.